In fact, why don't we talk a little bit about money? You know, that's a kind of taboo subject in spiritual communities. Can you speak to um, charging money for services or relying on donations, trusting, that will be provided for, stuff
Do
like
you
that?
remember, Amy, that we talked about this at a retreat in Woodstock maybe 10 years ago?
Oh my God, your memory is so good. Yeah, it is
No,
ringing a
my
bell.
memory is terrible, except when I'm talking to people. Somehow, in satsang, I remember situations and states of concern because money is such a strong thing. We need it, and we have so many inhibitions about asking for it or deserving, particularly in spiritual matters, because,
Mhm.
you know, it should be given away. And like you said, there are all kinds of expenses that go along with it, you know. Besides websites, there's travel expenses and all kinds of stuff. Well, where do we start with money? Money. Is it okay to want money? Is it okay to receive money? How much money? How do we feel about having money? How do we feel about how we have to get it? What do we have to do? So many ideas about how much we deserve, perhaps. Where should we start?
And then there's also, what does money symbolize? For some people, it's security. That's very much my background. However, as I matured, money came to symbolize freedom for me. So money can symbolize status, uh, safety. There's so many things that money stands for.
And it
Um,
also produces. You cannot say that money does not give you freedom of a certain kind. It's not really full freedom that's beautiful and overwhelming, but it's the freedom to do things that you like. It's also makes things easier, doesn't it?
yeah, and money is power. I got hooked on. Um, I had a Netflix binge with House of Cards before Kevin Spacey was busted, along with everybody else for sexual harassment. Although I don't think that would stop me from watching House of Cards. And it was mesmerizing towards the end of that series. And I'm just going to give everybody a spoiler alert here. Don't listen if you don't want to hear this. That he basically discovers that being president is not power. It's the money and influence behind politics where the real power lies.
Yes, that's right.
And I think we see that very much in our current state of affairs.
Yeah, very much. I watched a movie the other day, All the Money in the World. It's the story of J. Paul Getty and his
Oh,
grandson. I learned an awful lot of things about this billionaire back in the 70s, where he had all that money and wouldn't give to charity and was always checking the ticker tape if his money was going up or down, stock, and only like possessions because possessions, like paintings, sculptures, they didn't change. They were always beautiful. Whereas people, not so reliable. You know, they get emotional and they want your money. And he would actually say, with all these billions of dollars, that he wasn't secure. Now, he may have been lying, but there must have been some truth in that. That
oh yeah.
the stock could go down and he could lose it. And basically, when you talk about power, what he was really saying was that um, he had to win every deal. You had to lose. He had to win. So if it wasn't money, it was the power to take away something from you that you wanted and you couldn't have it. It's very vindictive. and
Mm-hmm.
so painful to even watch something like that. Because you watch people that don't have very much sometimes, and they're so generous. And they always seem to have enough, even though they don't have a lot. And then you
Yeah.
watch somebody that has more than anybody and can't give.
A Course in Miracles says to have, give all to all.
And actually, the truth as I see it is if you're giving to another, you're really giving to yourself. The
Yes.
more that you do give, the more that you get back. It's circular, you know?
I find everything to be circular also.
Yes. I mean, it's like, and it goes against our conditioning, that if you give something away, it's gone. But if you look at it in a circular way, if you're giving it to somebody, it's still going. And that energy is coming back to you. You can't intellectually say that that's a law, but you can feel it. You can see it coming back. So I would say, I'm just looking at my own experience, that if you have a sense of safety and you have a sense of trust that you have enough, I think that's enough. If you really feel that you will always have enough, even if you don't know where it's coming from, somehow you're connecting into the truth of how it really works, and all
That feels so important to me. Yeah, I would love for you to either repeat that or just say more about that. I think people could really be served by that.
Well, I think that people have a sense of insecurity about having enough because the bills keep coming in, they keep getting larger, inflation, and people, working hard to make enough money to cover everything, even if you have a lot, there's an awful lot to cover. But if you have a sense, and I think you have to really sense this from your own experience, really look at what's happening, that if you trust and you get the sense that you have enough, you've always had enough, that if you believe that you have enough and you can feel that, you'll always be taken care of. I don't think I said it quite the same way the second time, but the gist of it is correct.
Yeah, the gist is the same.
Well, how do you feel about having that trust that you'll always have what you need?
In my experience, when I'm unconcerned with what I need, it seems to come pretty easily. And I'll give you an example. I once rented an apartment that came with a garage, and it was affordable. And for some reason, I was lucky enough that it was a 2-family building. The landlord rented out the top floor to one family, the ground floor to me, and the basement to a third person. And for some reason, I, on the ground floor, also got a garage. And it took away all parking problems and all problems with the snow in the winter, that I had this luxurious thing, the garage. And I think it was because, I don't know, I just needed an apartment at that point in time, but did not feel desperate for it. And it popped up. It was too good to be true, but it was true. And then as I enjoyed that apartment, I really allowed myself to enjoy. I also had a little backyard that nobody else seemed to use, just me. And I started calling it my training wheels house. So it felt correct to me that I would be a homeowner, and that actually that should have happened by that point in time, but it hadn't. And so I just lightheartedly was calling it my training wheels house. I now had a garage, I had a backyard. Soon I'd have a house. And then my landlord used to joke with me and say to me, when you are a landlord, you'll understand. And all of that came to me effortlessly, Stuart. I ended up buying a home at a time when it didn't seem like I could afford it. So I moved from New York to Florida because it was after the housing bubble crisis. And so I got a home in Florida at a very low price, and I felt extremely fortunate. And then I moved to California a few years later and effortlessly found that I was a landlord, something that I thought was totally implausible. When my landlord would say to me, "When you're a landlord," that would tickle me so much because that seemed so ridiculous. So then I found myself to be a landlord. All of this were things that I never felt concerned or worried about. But things that I've worried about, it seems that it's been harder for those things to just kind of naturally arrive. And it's very hard to not worry or want something that seems necessary, So this is a real point that many people I've worked with, they, they're having concerns about paying their rent or about wanting to leave a job that they hate, but it feels scary. And that interrupts this knowing that we are always provided for because we are that which provides.
And at the same time, that's very true. At the same time, when the insecurity does arise, because we're not denying that insecurity does arise. It does. Because when you step out of your security zone, it's frightening. That also can be met. You can actually come and meet that fear, which is not very pleasant. Look at that. Right now, fear is taking over, and it feels like I better not do anything. I'm scared. And to actually meet it is like being very tender to something that's trying to scare you. Counterintuitive. Being gentle with it. Being gentle. Opening to it. Like you would be to an infant or a child. Put your arm around it. Befriend that insecurity. And then watch it soften. And then watch it arise again, because we have a lot of it. And stay with it, allow it.
I really love that you say, meet it tenderly, gently, as you would an infant. That's rarely spoken of, to have a relationship of tenderness with ourselves.
Because that's what we always wanted. And we're always looking for it in very subtle ways and very obvious ways. And that turns out that we're the only ones that can actually do it, because we're the only ones that really know that. We're the ones that know that insecurity. So,
and we're the ones that are the most finely attuned to what we need and how we'd like that need met.
Of course. And if we don't meet it, it just keeps running.
And then there's the subtlety of avoidance. In psychology, we'd call it reaction formation, where I might say, well, I'm very afraid to leave this job, so I'm just going to leave it tomorrow. I'm just quitting, and that'll show my faith in God. Whereas that's just reaction formation, where you're saying, I'm afraid of heights, so I'm going to go skydiving. But that doesn't actually mitigate your fear.
No, but it makes the body the person feel like they've overcome something because they've done something very brave. But it doesn't necessarily feel like that on the inside.
And it doesn't necessarily sustain itself, right? It could be short-lived.
Yeah, it could be very short-lived. Have you gone bungee jumping?
No way. That's a fear I feel like I don't need to address. The way I addressed that was, I always thought that I should be adventurous. That always sounded so fabulous. And one day I just realized, I'm not adventurous.
That's not who I am.
Right.
That's not going to happen. No.
What about you?
No, no bungee jumping. Just give me a swimming pool. That's fine. Yeah. That's interesting, talking about getting out of your own comfort zone. Sometimes we want to get out of it, but we don't want to get out of it because we're too frightened.
There's some psychologists who spoke of something like, I'm paraphrasing, changing while remaining the same.
To say more about that.
You give yourself permission to remain the same, especially if you're disappointed in yourself. I'm stuck. I'm never going to change. Well, give yourself permission to remain the same. It's a form of acceptance, but realize that you're going to have to change because everything that's alive wiggles. That's my way of putting it. Everything, it's a vibration. Vibration is a wiggle. So you cannot actually stay the same. No matter how much you tried to stay the same, you couldn't do it. Therefore, you can't be completely stuck. So changing while staying the same is a form of acceptance that you go, you know what, this is how I am. And then lo and behold, that opens something up. And little by little, something shifts.
Yes, naturally, without forcing it. Yeah, that's true.
So do we have any other advice to give people on money?
Let's see.
Oh, I just remembered something. Sometimes I would ask my clients when I had a private practice as a psychotherapist, because I'm just unconditioned in certain ways. I just really didn't have a business background, and I'm naturally a creative person. I would ask them if they were in any kind of situation where they themselves had an hourly rate. I'd say, how much do you charge for your services? And if they charged $1,000 an hour, I would say, well, then I'll charge you $1,000 an hour. I'll just charge what you charge.
Did you meet people that make $1,000 an hour?
No. No, I'm just thinking of somebody recently who says that he charges $1,000 an hour. But in my day, if somebody charged, let's say $150 an hour, then I would say, I have a sliding scale fee. I put people on the honor system. If you need some help, we can lower the fee. If you're doing very well, we can raise the fee so that I can treat a variety of people. And if you get a raise, please give me a raise. And if you lose your job, let me know and I'll work with you. That was how I would frame it.
Did it work?
For the most part, it worked.
Well, that's good. So it was very authentic.
Yes. And, I didn't tell too many people that that's how I was doing it.
Really? You just told your clients?
Yeah. I mean, occasionally I'd share it with a colleague. Not too many colleagues were interested. They had their own way of doing it, and they were billing after the fact and complaining that they weren't getting paid. I found this out in like a group supervision one time, and I was like, you're doing what? Because I always asked everybody to pay me on the spot. I wanted my money.
Sounds very smart.
And also, I pay people on the spot. I like to pay my bills on time. So it was my inclination, like, I want to pay you and I want to get paid.
That's why PayPal is so good. It's instant. And
love it. We love PayPal.
We like instant gratification too, don't we?
And that too.
No more waiting for the postman.
So true.
Check, right? I mean, it's really changed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it very simple. Genius,
yeah.
Really. It's brilliant. Brilliant. I wish we could offer more, advice about money. There's so many issues. I remember recently framing a course about looking at all the conditioning about money. And I thought we were going to really have some interesting discussions. And one person volunteered, and then the whole room went quiet and nobody wanted to talk about money at all. None of the conditioning. We're just not going to go there. And I just said, okay. We thought so. I thought so. But it's just not there. Because I think that there's so much baggage that we've got from insecurity about how much you need and how much you can have, and all the stuff about money from generation to generation to generation, that people fall into the haves and the have-nots and the limitation of being in the category and wishing that they could be here, but it's opposite where they are and it's stuck. it's completely locked in. And it's a really a loaded issue.
It is. You know, as a psychotherapist, I found that I invited people to unpack their psyche like you would a suitcase. I would often say to them, it's like we're going to do an archaeological dig. So let's just start to take things out of the hole and put it on the table and just look at it. And there's a lot of shame and guilt around money. It's very shocking to look at oneself and say,
Yeah.
oh, I am greedy and I am bitter, you know, but it's just, you're just those things along with everything else. You're also generous and you're also um, uh, unbitter, whatever that is. And, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah. And, the way you are, if you have no judgment about it, it's fine. But there are so many judgments about, I should be more generous. I shouldn't spend so much. I should spend more. If we were okay with it, it would be fine. But we really feel like it's not so good to be this way. And so we don't really want to touch it.
so it's really important for people to admit to themselves what's so. And so if right now money's very important to you, then it's good to just admit that to yourself. And you know what? Money's super important to me right now. And I'm very worried about it. And I want a lot of it. And I'm sick of feeling scarcity consciousness and just, articulate that to yourself and breathe through it. And then,
So if you were somebody that I was sitting with in satsang or in a private satsang, one-on-one, and what you were saying is just that there's a sense of insecurity and you're tired of it, that's about as far as I would say your mind has to delve into it. And I would ask you to go to where the insecurity was, where it emanates from, in the body. Because the body isn't going to lie to you. The insecurity is holding and doing something in the body, either in the head, or in the throat, or the solar plexus, or the belly, or wherever it is.
I got it. I'm going to play with you. So I immediately got from the throat a kind of sinking sensation through the center of the body down to just below the solar plexus where I felt a sort of nausea.
Mm-hmm. That's very common to feel that because you're actually touching the source of the insecurity. So if you can actually, instead of avoiding the nausea, actually go to it, and sometimes it helps to close the eyes so that you can really, really fully be with it and see the nausea and feel it from the inside without judgment as best you can. And what is it that you see or feel?
It's kind of a sort of triangular, kind of as if I had a rock inside of me.
And how large is that?
Like a nice, it would fill my hand.
I see. Yeah. And this rock, what do you want to do about it?
Well, I actually kind of like the rock that's revealing itself to have all sorts of kind of colors in it, sort of rust to black. But I would like to remove it from my solar plexus and have it in my hand to hold.
I see. So it's buried away and you can't hold it.
Correct. It's inside right now.
And what is it doing inside? Is it obstructing anything? Is it blocking? Does it want something?
The word plug immediately came up as if it's plugging a drain.
I see. And is there anything positive about that?
it actually felt like a judgment, like who are you to unplug and then just have as much as you want of anything?
Hmm.
But let me see if there's anything positive about it too. Well, it's kind of neutral. It's a stopper, like for a bathtub.
Yeah, but when you say, who are you to believe that you can have anything, and unplug, what does that feel like?
Well, right away, I get the association of danger and that, when you're affluent, people will prey on you. So it's best not to have much.
Yes. So you're saying.
So, yeah.
So can you feel that sensation of fear of being preyed on, that insecurity, that protection? Like the rock is protecting you from being preyed on. It's a holding, isn't it? It's a shrill kind of a holding.
What kind of holding?
Shrill. It feels shrill, like a chill. That's what I'm sensing here.
Mm-hmm. Well, the minute we talked about the fear part, I felt like my whole body was a kind of flat, black piece of paper with a lot of, I want to say stars. I mean, it sounds very pleasant, but it was a very scary feeling.
Do you feel that scary feeling?
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah.
It's emanating from my heart. It's a feeling of like, little shocks or something.
At the same time, there's some joy in it. Do you notice that?
Yes, I absolutely do notice it. Yes.
Yes. It's like something scary and I'm happy. It's like I'm happy to discover something.
I'm happy that someone is asking me about it and that I'm permitted to finally speak of this.
Oh, good. So that shrill is looking like possibility, like an opening is possible.
Very much so. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. It feels like possibility. And yeah,
possibility. Very positive, very open. There's a possibility here. I'm not sure that I'm ready, and I'm not sure I can actually leave my fear because I've lived with it. And I've been doing pretty well. But would I be willing to allow movement?
Yes, that's well said. And I'm getting escalofrios. In Spanish, escalofrios means like shivers up your spine in a good way. It's energy moving.
Yeah, you're actually kneading the block. That rock is a block. It's plugging up the danger. Well, am I willing to look at the danger and feel it? And that could be very exciting. Look at that.
It is.
Here's the fear. And do I want to risk it or not?
I do.
Yeah, good. So look at the possibility of a flow rather than a fear. Feel that. Feel the opportunity of a flow.
Flow. You said flow?
I did. Flow.
Stuart, it feels like parenting, that the parents just never offered this possibility. And I feel that so many people just need some good parenting.
I agree with you. Because, we hold on to what we've got because that's what we've got, and we'll do the best we can with it within our limits. But to imagine a little bit more unlimited, well, I'll buy the lotto ticket that I don't expect to win.
Yeah.
Maybe then. But actually, I am holding the limitation. And you verbalized it because then I'd be preyed on and I wouldn't be safe. So look again. Do you feel any of that insecurity of not feeling safe?
I just feel so much possibility right now. And I would just like listeners and viewers to know that I've done exercises like this many times over the past 30 years. But each guide, in this case, Stuart, has their own way of facilitating. But I'd like you to know that I'm ripe for this experience. And so I'm able to find my feelings very quickly, and I'm attuned to myself. So at first, you might find this process a little more, it might be slower or a little more elusive to you. But if with practice, you find it. And what I've found is that there is a very fine line between the feeling of fear and the feeling of being thrilled. Because I think it's all on a spectrum of adrenaline.
You know, people do like horror movies, don't they?
Yes.
People look for horror movies. They make a lot of them. Zombie movies and all kinds of horrible things going on because it's exhilarating.
It's exhilarating. Yes.
Yeah. And if you've been holding down and holding on for dear life in a way, to be shocked and scared opens. And even if it's against your will, you're forced to open because it's too frightening. So we're doing that in a softer way, actually.
Yeah, that's such an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's fun to come around to zombies when we started off with death.
Yeah, we covered pretty much everything, didn't we?
I think we have. So
spiritual zombies.
I do feel that there's a real sense of possibility. I like that word, energetically in me. You know, literally, I could feel my heart rise in my chest, that there's something meeting life now, that the rock doesn't feel like a block. It feels like now, and I don't feel nauseous now. It feels like a... like it has a purpose. It's a stopper, and it's not stuck. It can be calibrated.
It's not locked.
Locked. Thank you.
It's not locked. That's what the conditioning is. It locks us into our own limitation. And if we investigate it, it kind of like your word, it kind of wiggles, kind of like loses its power. And at the same time, it's trying to protect you because it's always done that by, you know where you are, you know, be appreciative, for God's sakes. Give gratitude for what you've got. But I want more. And I'm seeing that I'm the one that's saying no to it. Well, not now. Right now, I allow myself to let that wiggle.
That was great. That was great. And now I know that you do work one-on-one with people. So for those of you watching, if you'd like to do some one-on-one work with Stuart, you can see a demonstration of how he just worked with me.
Well, I didn't think this was going to turn into an ad, but thank you very much.
Well, right. It would be irresponsible of us not to invite people to give it a shot for themselves.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for this interview. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you had fun. So did I.
Yeah, it was very nice to spend some time with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, so until the next time.
Very good.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Ooh.